Hi, one and only Hirsch Sai here. Today is Tuesday, 16th of February 2021, reporting from Wellington, New Zealand. And just bear with me a bit, I'm feeling a bit kind of a bit under the weather today, especially with the cold weather we've been having, and we're in the middle of a COVID-19 lockdown as well on top of that. So, yeah, not feeling the best. But today's a topic that I've thought about for a very, very long time, and it's one that's never ceased to amaze me. It's always intrigued me, and it's sort of how it might seem a bit obvious, but I guess not always. But it's sort of how every major breakthrough we have seems to backfire, and it's amazing because how hard we work for these breakthroughs and how much they change our lives. But then they just seem to backfire almost completely. Like you look at, for example, food. Believe it or not, there was a time where there was heaps and heaps and heaps of starving people. I know there are still today, compared to the proportion of the total world population, it was much higher back about one generation ago, and certainly before that. And as I say today, there are more obese people than starving people. As I say today, there are as many starving people in the world as there were people in the world one generation ago. That's one thing I've heard. I'm not sure actually how old that fact is and how relevant it is to today, 2021. But more or less, will give you an idea. But basically, coming back to it, there was a time a while ago when there were many, many starving people, and we thought to ourselves, okay, one day we'll not have to, scrounge for food. One day there'll be so much of food, plenty of food. We'll never go hungry again. It'll be affordable. There'll be enough of it for everyone. And we did that, right? And look what happened. Now there's another disadvantage or another problem which we touched on briefly before. Obesity, who would have thought? We've gone from one extreme to the other, basically. Or how about cars? Cars are a good example, especially today in 2021, and especially today where I am in New Zealand. We look at houses, and just even the most basic of houses in the most, modest locations are costing absolute fortunes, and that is really the term for it. But it's actually a bit hard to believe, but only 100 or so years ago, cars were more expensive than houses because there were not many people, there was so much of land, houses were relatively easy to build, and of course they were much simpler, much smaller, and of course, cars were a brand new invention. It's a bit like think of a brand new Tesla car, a Tesla electric car today, and how much that costs. That's more or less how much cars cost back then because they were a relatively new invention. They were not common. They were not mass produced. There were not many producers of them in general. But again, we thought when cars were only for the rich, just like the brand new Teslas of today, when the cars were only for the rich, we thought to ourselves, well, one day we'll make them affordable, so affordable that everyone will have a car. In fact, some people might even have two, or some families might have two. We did that, and now there's another problem. We've got traffic jams, we've got dwindling oil reserves, we've got car crashes daily, and climate change on a global scale. Now the fate of the planet is under question. Who would have thought that just by giving everyone a motor vehicle, that it would actually cause the whole planet, the fate of the planet, to be in question? So it's interesting. Yeah, every major breakthrough we have seemed to backfire. One that I discussed earlier in another video was the invention of medicines and vaccines being one of the best inventions of all time. And it was. But then, of course, what did it do to the world's population? It made it skyrocket. And all these other problems like climate change or dwindling oil reserves or not enough food or too much food, things like that, are basically all resulting from that. Just as they say, the elephant in the room, population overload, just because of medicines. Well, not maybe just because of medicines and vaccines, but certainly to a large extent, medicines and vaccines helped so much for people to survive beyond infancy, beyond childhood, into adulthood, to have children of their own and all that. And who would have thought medicines and vaccines are now, we've got a population explosion, and it's a huge problem where the world's population is increasing exponentially. And we wonder if the planet can actually satisfy it in a few more decades, or say by 2050 or certainly 2100. So that's another one. Who would have thought? Medicines and vaccines. So you had medicines and vaccines, you had food, you had cars. Every major breakthrough we have seems to backfire. Another one, a favorite of mine, and probably one of the more common or more obvious ones, is of course IT. IT, we thought, oh, imagine that we could work from anywhere on anything at any time with IT, with all having personal computers and having those computers networked through the internet, and of course having our, of course, none of us can do without this, mobile phones. You know, but like I mentioned before in previous video, now look at it. We're now slaves to the very devices that were supposed to free us. You know, we're spending even longer in the office. There's even more paper in the office than there was one generation ago because we produce more work with with word processors, and naturally we like to print it, and printing costs have come down. So we print it, and as a result, there's more paper in the office. Work is more complicated. We have soft copy documents, but we still have hard copy documents. We've got um, pen drives, we've got CDs, we've got external hard drives, but we still have filing cabinets and archives and storage boxes, and we're constantly, reconciling between the two as well. It's almost a bit of a joke. And not only those things, but don't forget there's cyber crimes as well. That's also grown, and that's also on a global scale, and that's also huge. So who would have thought that by giving everyone a personal computer and networking those computers, that we would end up in another mess? But I guess I don't know. Maybe that's just life. You can never solve all your problems. Even if you went out there and solved all your current problems, another set of problems would probably just immediately emerge. It's like if you've got plenty of money and you don't need to work anymore, and you quit your job and you pay off all your debt, but then what happens? You get bored, you get lazy, you don't know what to do, you feel like you've got no purpose. You turn into a cabbage. All those sorts of things. Who knows? Were we perhaps better off as cavemen? Were we better off as hunter gatherers? I'll leave you to think about that one. Thank you.